What if the pain you're running from is the very thing meant to make you unbreakable? Life isn't fair. It never has been, and it never will be. No matter how kind you are, how hard you work, how much you prepare, life has its own plans, and none of them come with a guarantee. At some point, it will knock the air out of your lungs. You'll lose something, someone, or some part of yourself that you weren't ready to give up. It could be a job you poured your soul into, a person you thought would never leave, a dream you believed was meant for you. And when that moment comes, and it will, the question isn't why it happened. The question is, what will you do with the pain? The ancient Stoics didn't promise a painless life. In fact, they warned us that pain is inevitable, but they also left us with something more powerful than comfort. They left us with clarity. Clarity that the greatest strength we possess isn't found in avoiding hardship, but in how we rise through it. Epictetus, who lived as a slave and then became a philosopher, once said, "He who masters his words masters his destiny." But what if the first step to mastering your words is mastering your wounds? Let me tell you a story. It's not dramatic, it's not flashy, but it's real, and maybe that's why it matters. Brandon was a young mechanical engineer from Texas. His life was the kind people call stable. He had a decent a small house, and the kind of love most people only hope to find once in a lifetime. Her name was Lily. They were just weeks away from their wedding when a car accident took her life. No warning, no final conversation, no closure. What followed wasn't just grief, it was rage. Brandon felt betrayed by life, by fate, by the universe. He stopped talking to friends. He stopped working. He stopped eating. The person he was seemed to vanish overnight. All that was left was a hollow man staring at the ceiling, asking the question no one ever answers. Why me be? One night, as he sat on the floor of his dimly lit apartment, his uncle, an old school history teacher, handed him a small book. It was worn at the edges, the kind of book you keep for years but never really read until you need it most. Letters to Lucilius by Seneca. Brandon opened it half-heartedly, expecting philosophy to sound like noise. But one sentence stopped him cold. The wise man does not grieve over what he has lost, but rejoices in having had it. For the first time in months, Brandon cried, not from pain, but from recognition. He realized that every moment he had spent with Lily wasn't stolen from him. It was gifted to him, and no tragedy could erase that. That night didn't fix him. There's no such thing. But it woke something up inside him, a spark, and that spark became the first step in reclaiming his life. You see, the Stoics didn't teach us to suppress emotion. They taught us to use it. They believed that pain is not the end of the road, but a fork in the path. One direction leads to bitterness, blame, and self-destruction. The other leads to wisdom, presence, and unshakable peace. But make no mistake, the choice is yours. We live in a time where people seek comfort as if it's the highest good. But what if comfort is keeping you weak? What if the very thing you're trying to avoid is the key to everything you've been looking for? Resilience, clarity, strength, meaning. Brandon's story isn't special. That's the point. It's yours. It's mine. It's the story of anyone who's ever lost something they loved and chose not to let that loss define them. And if you're listening to this, you've probably stood at the edge of your own pain and wondered if you'd ever feel whole again. Maybe no one told you this before, so let me say it clearly. You don't have to wait for life to feel fair before you decide to live it with strength. You don't need everything to make sense in order to start healing. And you don't need permission to take your pain and build something beautiful with it. What you need is a reason, or maybe just a reminder, that you are stronger than you think, and your story doesn't end at the chapter of loss. So let this be your beginning, because from this moment on, we're going to explore 12 Stoic lessons that have helped countless people rise, not in spite of adversity, but because of it. Lessons that don't sugarcoat the truth, but illuminate a way through it. Lessons that invite you to stop surviving and start transforming. And if something in your life has left a wound, let this be the moment you stop hiding it and start using it. Let's begin. 1. Stop expecting life to be easy. If you're waiting for life to finally get easier, stop. You're setting yourself up for disappointment. That sounds harsh, I know, but let me explain. Most of us are raised on a quiet assumption that if we work hard, do the right thing, and stay patient, life will eventually reward us. That success will come, that people will recognize our effort, that everything will line up once we've earned it. But the truth? Life doesn't operate on a point system, and the longer you expect it to, the more bitter you'll become. Let me tell you about Emily. She's a graphic designer in Chicago, talented, driven, deeply loyal to her company. For 2 years, she went above and beyond, stayed late, helped coworkers, took on projects no one wanted, and when the promotion she'd been eyeing finally opened up, she gave it everything. Her portfolio was flawless. Her results, impressive. Her colleagues, they were sure she had it in the bag, but she didn't get it. The promotion went to someone newer, flashier, louder. And just like that, everything Emily believed in, hard work, fairness, loyalty, collapsed. She felt humiliated, rejected, betrayed. Her first reaction was heartbreak. Her second, rage. Why did I even try? She asked. Why did I believe that doing the right thing would pay off? And maybe you've been there too. Maybe it wasn't a promotion. Maybe it was a relationship, a personal goal, or a dream that didn't unfold the way you hoped. It's easy to fall into the trap of thinking, if I do everything right, things should go my way. But that mindset isn't just unrealistic, it's dangerous. Because when life eventually delivers something hard, and it always will, you'll feel like you've been cheated. But here's the truth the Stoics knew thousands of years ago. Life is not meant to be easy. And more importantly, it's not better when it is. Epictetus said it best. Do not seek for things to happen as you wish. Rather, wish for them to happen as they do, and you will go well. That single shift, accepting what is instead of demanding what should be, is the beginning of freedom. Because when you stop expecting ease, you stop feeling betrayed by difficulty. You start seeing challenge not as punishment, but as process. You stop asking, why me? And start asking, what now? Emily eventually realized that her disappointment wasn't just about the promotion, it was about her expectations. She had built a mental contract with the universe. If I give everything, you'll reward me. But the universe never signed that contract. And when she let go of it, something surprising happened. She stopped waiting to be chosen. She started choosing herself. 3 months later, she took a freelance offer that doubled her income and gave her creative freedom she never had before. But none of that would have happened if she'd stayed stuck in the pain of life should be fair. And that brings me to you. If you're facing something hard right now, if things aren't going according to plan, maybe the plan needs to change, not because you failed, but because life is doing what it always does, testing your ability to adapt, to accept, to evolve. There's a powerful metaphor I like, climbing a mountain. At the base, the path is wide and welcoming, but the higher you go, the steeper it gets. The air thins, your legs tremble, and the ones who expected an easy hike, they quit. But the ones who embrace the burn, they keep going. And the view they earn, the peace, the perspective, it isn't handed to them. It's earned through every painful, imperfect step. We admire people like Viktor Frankl, who survived the Holocaust and later wrote about meaning and suffering. But we forget, he didn't find meaning after the pain. He discovered it through the pain. And so can we. So what does this mean for your life, practically? It means stop resenting the struggle. Start welcoming it. Not because you enjoy it, but because it's the only real path to strength. It means when the job doesn't come, when the relationship fails, when your plans fall apart, you don't fall apart with them. You rise. It also means stop asking life to be easy and instead start asking yourself to be ready. Ready for uncertainty, ready for rejection, ready for long roads and slow progress. Because the only people who make it through the storm are the ones who stopped expecting sunshine. So the next time something gets hard, and it will, don't see it as a signal that something's wrong. See it as a reminder that you're alive and that growth is happening, even when it doesn't feel like it. The path was never supposed to be easy, but it was always meant to shape you. 2. Don't look for shortcuts. Everyone wants progress. Few are willing to pay the full price for it. We live in a world obsessed with speed, faster results, quicker success, one-click solutions, lose weight in 7 days, make 6 figures in 6 months, find love instantly. We're surrounded by the illusion that there's always a shortcut, that if we're smart enough, we can skip the struggle. But here's the truth most people don't want to hear. Shortcuts don't lead to strength. They lead to weakness in disguise. Take Dylan, for example. He was a promising amateur bodybuilder from Southern California. Naturally strong, highly disciplined. On the surface, the kind of guy you'd assume had it all together. But Dylan had a secret. While his friends trained for hours in the gym, he started using shortcuts, performance enhancers, stimulants, risky supplements. At first it worked. His physique improved rapidly. His followers grew on social media. Compliments poured in. But his body was telling a different story. Beneath the surface, his system was breaking down. His joints inflamed. Sleep disappeared. His mind, once sharp and focused, became foggy and anxious. Then, one day during a deadlift session, his body gave out. A tendon tore. The injury was brutal, but not as brutal as the aftermath. He was benched for almost a year, forced to confront the very thing he'd tried to avoid. Slow, steady, uncomfortable rebuilding. That year nearly broke him, not just physically, but mentally. He wasn't just healing bones, he was healing regret. Regret for chasing quick wins. Regret for disrespecting the process. Regret for skipping the part of growth that really matters, the pain. You see, the Stoics knew something we often forget. The things we most want in life, strength, wisdom, peace, are not given. They're earned, slowly, patiently, through challenge, through practice, through setbacks. Seneca wrote, "We do not dare to undertake many things because they are difficult, but they are difficult because we do not dare to undertake them." In other words, most people avoid the hard path not because it's impossible, but because it demands more than they're willing to give. So instead, they reach for a shortcut. But here's the problem. Anything worth building, real relationships, real character, real confidence, requires struggle. And if you try to bypass that struggle, you rob yourself of the transformation that comes with it. It's like planting a tree and yanking it upward every week, hoping it'll grow faster. You might see progress for a while, but it's not rooted. The first storm will rip it out of the ground. But the tree that grows slowly, patiently, it roots itself deep. And when the winds come, it bends, but it does not break. So ask yourself this: where in your life are you trying to rush something that actually needs time? Are you looking for hacks instead of building habits? Are you comparing your path to someone else's highlight reel? Are you chasing validation instead of becoming valuable? This isn't about guilt, it's about growth. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to have it all figured out. But you do need to stop looking for the exit every time something gets hard. You need to stop believing the myth that there's a way around the work. There isn't, and deep down you know that. I've fallen for it too. There were times I wanted quick answers, quick wins. I avoided discomfort and looked for the back door. And every time it came back to bite me, not because life was cruel, but because shortcuts cheat you out of the deeper reward, the kind of strength you can only earn by staying, by enduring, by finishing the hard way. Here's what I've learned. The path to greatness is never crowded, not because few people want success, but because few people are willing to walk through the fire it takes to get there. The people who go far, they aren't the most gifted. They're the ones who show up every day when it's boring, when it's painful, when no one is watching. They don't flinch when it's hard. They lean in because they know something most people forget. That real progress isn't made in the spotlight. It's made in silence, in repetition, in resistance. That's where grit is born. So the next time you're tempted to take the easy way out, to skip steps, to rush the result, pause and ask yourself, is this going to make me stronger, or is it just easier? Because the truth is, the shortcut never makes you who you want to become. It only delays the moment you are forced to do it the real way anyway. The hard path isn't punishment, it's preparation. And if you can learn to stop running from it and instead walk into it with both eyes open, you'll realize something powerful, that everything you were hoping to find at the end of the shortcut, confidence, resilience, depth, you already had the capacity to build. You just needed the courage to take the long road. 3, become anti-fragile. Some things break under pressure. Others become unshakable. That's the essence of what it means to be anti-fragile, not just to survive the storm, but to grow stronger because of it. It's one of the most powerful ideas buried deep in Stoic philosophy, and yet most of us were never taught how to live that way. We were taught to seek stability, avoid cases, and shield ourselves from pain. But life doesn't work like that. It never stays steady, and it certainly doesn't wait for us to feel ready. Rebecca learned this the hard way. She was a small business owner from Denver, passionate about education, deeply committed, and for a few years she ran a tutoring company that helped kids struggling with literacy. But when the pandemic hit, her business collapsed. Clients disappeared. Her savings dried up. Loans piled up. Within 6 months, everything she had built over 5 years was gone. The day she signed the bankruptcy paperwork, she said she felt like a failure. Not just professionally, but personally. I thought I was smart, she told a friend. I thought I was prepared, but I couldn't save it. She was tempted to quit, to run from the But she didn't. Instead, she did something most people avoid when things fall apart. She faced the wreckage without flinching. She took online finance courses, studied systems, asked for help. She humbled herself and started over, not from scratch, but from experience. 3 years later, she launched a new business. Same mission, helping students, but this time she did it online. She built a platform with scalable tools, hired a remote team, and implemented the financial controls she'd never understood before. And today, her company is thriving. Not in spite of the failure, but because of it. The Stoics would say she didn't just become resilient, she became anti-fragile. She didn't bounce back to who she was before. She transformed into someone stronger, wiser, and more capable than the woman who failed. And that's the difference. Because resilience is the ability to endure, but anti-fragility is the ability to gain from adversity. Marcus Aurelius captured it perfectly. A blazing fire makes flame and brightness out of everything that is thrown into it. He didn't say the fire avoids the debris. He said it consumes it and shines brighter. What if we lived like that? What if we stopped fearing failure and started using it as fuel? Too often we think hardship is a sign we've messed up, that life is punishing us. But more often than not, hardship is simply life's way of introducing us to parts of ourselves we haven't met yet. You don't discover your strength when things are comfortable. You discover it when you're forced to choose between breaking or building. Think about the strongest people you know, the ones who carry peace in chaos, who don't overreact, who seem grounded, unshaken, calm under fire. They weren't born like that. They were forged like that, through loss, through disappointment, through pressure. They were burned, and yet, like fire, they became brighter, not smaller. I've seen this pattern over and over again. The people who grow the most are the ones who stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start asking, "How can I grow from this?" And yes, it's hard. There's nothing romantic about going through pain. There's no shortcut through fear or shame or failure. But there is meaning and there is power. Because every time you don't give up, you become someone that even you didn't know you could be. The key is this: don't waste your suffering. Most people spend so much energy running from discomfort that they miss the transformation that's waiting inside it. But if you can lean into it, if you can trust that something stronger is being forged even as things fall apart, then you're already halfway there. Being anti-fragile doesn't mean you enjoy pain. It means you extract strength from it. It means the next time you're disappointed or rejected or something doesn't go your way, you pause and ask, "What's the fire in me going to do with this? Will you let it smother you? Or will you let it burn brighter?" So here's my challenge to you. Don't aim to be safe. Don't aim to be untouched. Aim to be untouchable, not because nothing ever harms you, but because you've learned to turn every blow into fuel. When life throws setbacks at you, let them feed your fire. When you fall, fall forward. When you lose, learn. When you suffer, shape it into something that strengthens you. Because the truth is, there's no version of life without struggle. But there is a version of you that's strong enough to take it, shape it, and rise beyond it. Be that version. Let the fire rise. 4, don't complain. It weakens you. Some habits feel harmless until life tests you. Complaining is one of them. Most people don't see it for what it really is. It feels innocent, even comforting. You stub your toe, spill coffee, get cut off in traffic, and you vent. It's how we connect, how we bond over mutual frustration. Can you believe the weather? Oh, this job is killing me. People are the worst. And sure, these little complaints seem like stress relief, but over time, they become something far more dangerous. A mindset, a pattern of seeing everything through the lens of negativity, and that mindset will fail you the moment life actually gets hard. Mark learned that the painful way. He worked in IT, smart guy, competent, quick on his feet, but he had a reputation. Always grumbling about everything. The clients were annoying. The team was clueless. The traffic, a disaster. He wore his sarcasm like armor, but underneath, he was running on frustration. Life always felt like a fight he was losing. Then one day, his mother passed away unexpectedly. No warning, no time to prepare, just a phone call and silence. Suddenly, the things he used to complain about, the coffee, the emails, the weather, felt meaningless. But here's the tragic part. When the real storm hit, Mark didn't have the emotional muscles to handle it. He was so used to reacting, so used to unloading his stress without reflection, that he had no tools to process real grief. The habit of constant complaining had robbed him of resilience. And this isn't just Mark's story. This is what happens when you rehearse weakness instead of training for strength. You don't notice it at first. You just feel off, heavier, slower, but that's the weight of your own words dragging you down. The Stoics warned us centuries ago, don't waste your energy resisting reality. Don't yell at the sea for having waves. It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. Epictetus. Complaining is a reaction. It's passive, it's loud, but it changes nothing. In fact, it makes you weaker, because the more you do it, the more your mind starts searching for things to be upset about. Neuroscience confirms this. Complaining literally rewires your brain to focus on the negative. It becomes a loop. You see the bad, you speak the bad, you feel the bad, and then your brain becomes addicted to that pattern. That's not just mindset, that's chemistry, and it builds a cage you don't even realize you're in. You've probably met someone like this, the coworker who starts every Monday with, "Ugh, this week's already a mess." The friend who finds a problem in every solution. The relative who's been done wrong by everyone they've ever known. You try to lift them, but their energy pulls you down. Because complaining is contagious, but so is its opposite. Calm, strength, quiet action. The strongest people I know aren't the loudest. They're not the ones venting every inconvenience. They're the ones who pause, reflect, act with intention. They don't deny the hard stuff, but they don't feed it either. They face it. They ask better questions. What can I do? What does this teach me? What's within my control right now? You want to build mental toughness? Start there. Replace complaints with clarity. When something frustrates you, take a breath and ask, is this worth my energy? Can I fix it or can I let it go? And if you really want to break the habit, be intentional with your words. Say what you do want, not just what you don't. Instead of, I can't take this anymore, try, this is hard, but I'm figuring it out. Instead of, I hate my job, try, I'm learning what I need from my next opportunity. Language matters. Words aren't just noise. They shape your reality. Here's another tip. Protect your environment. If everyone around you complains, you'll absorb it. Spend more time with problem solvers, not problem repeaters. Energy is contagious. Choose your circle carefully. And remember, life will throw real pain your way. Heartbreak, loss, disappointment. Don't waste your strength on traffic jams and cold coffee. Save it for the moments that demand your full self. Mark eventually learned this. After his mother's death, he hit a wall, but slowly he began to shift. He stopped broadcasting every minor frustration and started journaling instead. He found moments of silence, spaces to breathe before speaking. He learned to catch himself mid-complaint, asking, "Is this helping or just rehearsing misery?" Over time, he became less reactive, more reflective. The sarcasm faded. The quiet strength grew. Complaining is easy. Anyone can do it. But mastery begins when you stop reacting and start choosing. And if you really want to build a mind that can weather the storms of life, don't start with grand acts of courage. Start with the next sentence you speak. Let it be useful. Let it be strong. Let it be the voice of someone who no longer lets every inconvenience write their story. Let it be the voice of someone free. 5. Accept that everything ends. What if the very thing you fear the most, losing someone, something, or even yourself, is actually the one truth that can make you come alive? There's one reality we all try to push aside, sometimes quietly, sometimes desperately, that everything ends. People, seasons, chapters, even the parts of ourselves we thought would last forever. We live as if we have unlimited time, as if nothing will change unless we decide it should. But time doesn't wait for our permission. It slips, it moves. And when we resist that, when we pretend permanence is real, we suffer far more than we need to. Linda knows this too well. She was 70 when her husband passed away. They had been together for nearly 50 years, married young, raised 2 children, retired in a cozy house in Oregon. To anyone looking in, it was a good life. And it was. But behind the warmth of companionship was a silent fear Linda carried for decades. The fear of losing him. She couldn't imagine her days without his footsteps in the hallway, his jokes at the dinner table, his hand reaching for hers during a movie. So when he passed, suddenly, from a stroke, it wasn't just grief that overwhelmed her. It was terror. Her mind spiraled. She couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. She said it felt like her entire identity had collapsed into silence. And for a long time, that silence consumed her. But one afternoon, as she sorted through a box of his books, she found a note he'd once scribbled inside a cover. Just one line, but it shifted something in her. Memento mori. Remember that you will die. It shocked her. She had heard the phrase before, of course. It was a Stoic principle. But seeing it in his handwriting made it real, made it intimate. It wasn't a cold reminder of death. It was a whisper from him, even after he was gone. That night, she sat with the idea, and something clicked. What if the purpose of life wasn't to hold on forever, but to love more fiercely because you can't? What if the brevity of everything is the reason anything matters? The Stoics didn't see death as a tragedy. They saw it as clarity. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Do not act as if you were going to live 10,000 years. The time is slipping away. While it is still possible, be good. Not be successful, not be remembered. Just be good while you can, because none of us are guaranteed a tomorrow." Linda began to shift. She still missed him. She always will, but the grief transformed. It stopped being a weight and started becoming a mirror, a reminder to reach out more, to spend time with her grandchildren, to start gardening again, to write the poetry she always put off, not because she stopped hurting, but because she remembered how precious this all is. And that's the message the Stoics gave us. Acceptance isn't giving up. It's waking up. Most people spend their lives resisting endings. We avoid the word death. We pretend age won't touch us. We delay the hard conversations. But what if we did the opposite? What if, instead of avoiding the end, we let it guide us? Imagine this. If you knew for certain you had only 24 hours left, what would you say? What would you do? Who would you call? Why aren't you doing that now? The problem is not that life is short. The problem is that we act like it's not. We waste years waiting for the perfect moment, thinking we have endless time to fix things, to say what matters, to become who we're meant to be. But the Stoics knew the truth. The end is always near. And if you make peace with that, you can start living fully now. Look around. Every tree falls, every river dries, every star burns out. Nothing escapes this law, not even us. But that's not tragic. It's beautiful. It's what gives everything meaning. So the next time you feel overwhelmed by the fear of loss, try this. Instead of pulling away from it, breathe it in. Let it wake you up. Let it remind you that this conversation, this cup of coffee, this walk in the morning light, it matters because it's temporary. Linda still keeps that book on her nightstand. She rereads that quote often, and she says now with a soft smile, I still miss him, but I'm not afraid anymore. I just want to live well while I still can. That's the kind of courage death can give you if you let it. So don't run from the end. Let it shape how you begin again, every day. Live like someone who knows this ride won't last forever. Because the truth is, it's the very impermanence of life that makes every second sacred. 6. You are not special. Everyone suffers. At some point, life will humble you, and not gently. You'll give your best effort. You'll pour your heart into something. You'll follow the rules. Stay kind, work hard, stay patient. And still, it won't be enough. The job won't come. The person won't stay. The dream won't catch fire. And when that happens, there's a voice that creeps in, whispering the same bitter line. Why me? I did everything right. But here's the truth no one wants to admit. Suffering doesn't skip anyone. It never has. And believing that you're the exception, the one person who shouldn't have to struggle, is exactly what makes the pain feel unbearable. Kevin found that out the hard way. He's a young musician, talented, passionate, the kind of guy who's always writing lyrics on napkins and waking up at 2 a.m. to record a melody. For years, he poured himself into his craft. He built a small following online, hoping that one day one song would change everything. And then, he believed, people would finally see him, appreciate him, understand him. One day he posted a track that he was sure would go viral. It had emotion, it had polish, it had something real. And then, silence. A few likes, a handful of comments, but no explosion, no discovery, just a dull echo. Kevin was furious. He ranted to a friend, "What's the point? I'm better than half the stuff that goes viral." Nobody cares about real talent anymore. He wasn't just disappointed, he felt betrayed, as if the world had overlooked someone who clearly deserved more. His friend didn't argue, he just handed Kevin a book. Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. And one night, while doom-scrolling, Kevin flipped it open to a sentence that stopped him cold. Stop wasting time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one. No pity, no sugarcoating, just a truth so sharp it pierced through the noise. That moment hit Kevin harder than any rejection, because for the first time he realized he'd made his pain about his uniqueness, as if he alone had been overlooked. as if he was entitled to a smooth path simply because he cared more. But the truth is, everyone suffers. Everyone has dreams that fall flat. Everyone feels invisible at some point. You're not special because you're hurting. You're not unique because life didn't go your way. What makes you stand out, what defines you, is what you do when it happens. The Stoics understood this deeply. They didn't complain when misfortune came. They expected it. They trained for it. They didn't wait for the world to validate them. They got up and kept moving anyway. They didn't see adversity as a punishment. They saw it as part of the contract of being alive. Think about the people you admire most. The leaders, the artists, the thinkers. None of them got there without scars. They weren't handed perfect circumstances. They weren't loved by the masses from day one. They kept showing up in silence, without applause, without guarantees. So here's the shift. Instead of asking, why me? Ask, why not me? Why should I be the only one who gets to avoid pain? Why should I be spared what every strong soul before me has endured? And more importantly, what can I do with this? That's the beginning of real strength. That's where the illusion of being special gives way to something more powerful, being honest. Honest about the fact that life owes you nothing, but also honest about the fact that you owe yourself the best response possible, no matter what's been thrown at you. Kevin started to change after that, not overnight, but little by little. He stopped watching the numbers. He stopped tying his worth to outcomes he couldn't control. He started writing again, not to be heard, but to be real. His work got deeper, sharper. He stopped chasing validation and started chasing growth. And ironically, that's when people started listening. But by then, it wasn't the goal. It was just a bonus. There's something freeing about letting go of the belief that you're owed a smooth life. It takes the weight off. It gives you room to breathe, to stop comparing, to stop keeping score, to just do the work and live. You're not special because you suffer, but you can become extraordinary by how you rise from it. So the next time disappointment hits, when the job doesn't come, when the call doesn't ring, when the effort goes unnoticed, remember this. You are not alone in your pain, but you are in control of your response. Be the person who doesn't just expect better from life, but brings better into it. Be the one who turns rejection into refinement. Be the one who becomes so grounded, so steady, so committed to their path that no setback can take them off course. Because Marcus Aurelius was right. Don't argue about what a good person should be. Be one. 7. Control what you say. Practice silence. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is nothing at all. In a world where noise is constant and opinions fly faster than thought, choosing silence can feel unnatural, maybe even weak. But the truth is, silence isn't passive. It's not avoidance. When used wisely, it's a tool of immense strength. It's how you hold your ground without shouting, how you create space for wisdom instead of reacting from impulse. And for Amanda, silence changed everything. Amanda was a high school teacher in a busy district outside Atlanta. She loved her students, was respected by her peers, and took pride in creating a calm, structured classroom. But faculty meetings? That was her battlefield. Tension ran high. People interrupted, defended, snapped at each other over policy changes and funding cuts. Amanda, who had always been articulate and passionate, often found herself caught in the heat. She'd speak up when she felt the conversation was going off track. She'd push back when others got emotional. And while her intentions were good, something was off. One day after another chaotic meeting where she left feeling drained and misunderstood, a colleague pulled her aside and asked gently, "Amanda, have you ever tried just not responding right away?" Amanda blinked. She was quiet for a moment, ironically. Then she laughed. "What, just sit there and let people say whatever they want?" Her colleague smiled. "Sometimes, yes. Sometimes letting the noise pass is more effective than joining it." It sounded counterintuitive, but something about it stayed with her. That night, Amanda came across a quote from Epictetus that struck a chord. "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak." Simple, wise, and suddenly incredibly relevant. She decided to try it. At the next faculty meeting, Amanda stayed quiet, not silent in fear, but present in calm. When a disagreement sparked, she breathed. She listened. She observed not just the words people were using, but the emotions behind them. She realized how often people didn't want to be fixed or challenged. They just wanted to be heard, and her silence gave them that. When she did speak, near the end of the meeting, her voice cut through the noise, not because it was louder, but because it was earned. People listened, and for the first time in a long while, Amanda felt respected not for speaking up, but for knowing when to hold back. This became a turning point in her professional life. She didn't stop contributing, she just stopped reacting. She began practicing what the Stoics called inner discipline, the art of choosing your response, rather than being controlled by emotion. Silence, she discovered, is not the absence of thought, it's the birthplace of clarity. Most of us are taught to speak our mind, to make our voices heard. And yes, there's value in that. But what we're rarely taught is when not to speak, when to let space exist, when to listen, not to respond, but to understand. That's where emotional maturity grows. Think about it. How many times have you said something in anger only to regret it minutes later? How often has a conversation spiraled simply because no one paused long enough to breathe? Silence gives you that pause. It creates a gap between stimulus and response, a sacred space where wisdom has a chance to speak before your ego does. It doesn't mean you suppress your voice. It means you respect it enough not to waste it. In my own life, I've seen how silence can de-escalate arguments, earn trust, and shift the energy in a room. I've learned that when someone is venting, the best thing isn't always to reply. Sometimes it's to let them finish, to nod, to be present. And when you do speak, your words carry more weight because they're not just reactions, they're reflections. The Stoics believe that self-mastery begins with the tongue, because if you can control what you say, you've already begun to control what you think, how you feel, and how you show up in the world. So here's a question worth asking yourself. Are you using your voice to build or just to broadcast? Amanda's silence became her strength. She became known not as the loudest voice in the room, but the most grounded one. And when she did speak, people listened, not out of courtesy, but out of respect. You don't have to fill every space with words. You don't have to explain every opinion or defend every point. Let your actions speak. Let your presence speak. Let your silence speak when words would only add noise. Because in the end, real strength doesn't always roar. Sometimes it simply listens, waits, and responds. Not from ego, but from calm. And in a noisy world, that kind of silence isn't weakness, it's power. 8. Step outside the box. The most dangerous prison is the one you can't see, built not by walls but by beliefs you never thought to question. Jason was born into a long line of lawyers. His grandfather practiced law for 40 years. His father had his own firm in Seattle. From the moment Jason could hold a pencil, it was assumed, spoken or not, that he'd follow in their footsteps. And so he did for a while. He majored in political science, interned at the family office. He even studied for the LSAT with quiet resignation, telling himself, this is the path. This is what success looks like. But deep down, something felt off. Not broken, just misaligned. You know that subtle hum in your chest when you're doing something that isn't quite you? That was Jason's reality for years. Then one summer, he signed up for a short elective course on game design. Just for fun, a creative break from case studies and courtroom strategies. But what started as a distraction quickly became an obsession. He stayed up late sketching ideas, coding simple scenes, building worlds, and most of all, feeling alive. It terrified him, because if this is what lit him up, what did it mean for the path he was already on? What would his father say? What would people think if he threw away years of preparation for something so unpredictable? That's when he stumbled on a quote from Epictetus. It is not reality that imprisons us, but the chains of our own opinions. Jason paused. His life wasn't locked down by external forces. He wasn't trapped in a courtroom. He wasn't financially dependent. He wasn't legally obligated to become his father. The only real barrier was belief. The belief that there was only one right way to succeed, one definition of acceptable, one narrative worth pursuing. That quote cracked something open. For the first time, Jason asked, what if I'm not stuck at all? This is what the Stoics knew centuries ago, that the limits we face are rarely out there. They're in here, in our assumptions, our fears, our untested stories about who we're supposed to be. Stepping outside the box isn't always dramatic. Sometimes it's as quiet as taking a different class, saying no to a family tradition, admitting even to yourself that you want something else. But make no mistake, it takes courage, because when you leave the box, you also leave behind the comfort of certainty. You risk disappointing people, you risk failure, but you also risk growth. You risk becoming someone who's not just living, but alive. I've seen this play out again and again. A nurse who became a sculptor at 50, a retired firefighter who started writing children's books, a single mother who launched a fitness app after years of telling herself she was just surviving. And no, it's not about chasing every whim or giving up when things get tough. The Stoics weren't advocates of chaos. They believed in discipline, structure, virtue. But they also believed in truth. And if the life you're living isn't aligned with your nature, your joy, your potential, then silence and obedience aren't strength. They're surrender. Jason didn't quit law school the next day. He sat with his questions. He researched. He designed a small project. He took a leap, then another. And today, he's not wearing a tie in court. He's leading a team of game developers, building immersive experiences that teach critical thinking and emotional resilience to teens. He found his purpose not by staying inside the box, but by wondering what was outside it. So ask yourself, what beliefs have you inherited without inspection? What paths are you following simply because they were paved before you? And what might be waiting on the other side of that quiet, persistent discomfort? You're not too old. It's not too late. And no, you don't owe anyone your life script if it no longer fits. You owe them your honesty. You owe yourself your freedom. Remember what Epictetus said, "It's not reality that imprisons us. It's the chains of our own opinions. And those chains, they can be broken. One question at a time, one step at a time. Step outside. The air is different out here, and so are you." 9. Nothing is as bad as it seems in your head. Have you ever noticed how loud your mind gets when something goes wrong? How it creates an entire disaster movie out of a single scene? Nina had just finished an interview for a position she had dreamed about for months. She was qualified, prepared, and even felt a spark with the hiring manager. But when the email came, it was a no. No explanation, just rejection. In the days that followed, her mind took over like a storm. "You're not good enough. You blew it. You'll never get a job like that again. What if every future employer thinks the same?" Her thoughts weren't just disappointed, they were brutal. She began replaying every answer she gave, imagining judgment in every pause. And slowly she started withdrawing, stopped applying, stopped reaching out, even avoided friends. But here's what actually happened. The hiring manager had loved her, just not for that particular role. A few weeks later, another team in the same company reached out. Not only did they offer her a position, but it was a better fit, with more creative freedom, a healthier culture, and, ironically, a higher salary. Nina didn't fail. Life just redirected her. And when she looked back at those days of internal chaos, she realized something profound. The pain wasn't from reality. It came from her interpretation of it. Marcus Aurelius said it best. If something external disturbs you, the problem is not in the thing itself, but in your interpretation of it. Our minds don't just experience events. They translate them through filters of fear, memory, insecurity, and ego. And sometimes that translation is way off. Think about it. How many times have you overreacted to something that, in hindsight, wasn't that bad? A delayed text that made you spiral into doubt, only to find out the person was just busy. A mistake at work that made you feel like a fraud, until your boss shrugged it off as normal. Our brains are meaning-making machines, but when we let them run unchecked, they create horror stories out of plot twists. This isn't about toxic positivity or pretending everything is fine when it's not. Pain is real. Loss is real. Rejection stings. But suffering often multiplies in the mind long after the moment has passed. The Stoics knew this. They trained themselves to pause, not to suppress emotion, but to separate fact from fiction. Seneca once said, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." And it's true, the job you didn't get might make room for the one that changes your life. The person who left might have saved you years of quiet misery. The closed door might be the very thing that nudges you toward growth. But you won't see that unless you stop catastrophizing everything in your head. I've learned to ask myself 3 simple questions whenever my thoughts start spiraling. 1, is it true? Not, does it feel true? But is it objectively true? If not, pause. 2, is it useful? Is this thought helping me solve the problem or just making me anxious? 3, is it final? Is this truly the end of the story or could it just be one chapter? These questions don't erase the pain, but they shrink it back to size. Stoicism doesn't promise you a painless life. It promises clarity so that you don't add unnecessary suffering to an already difficult situation. Nina's story isn't rare. It's happening to someone right now, maybe to you. Maybe you just lost something you really wanted, and your mind is telling you that this is it, that you've failed, that the future is bleak. Pause, breathe, and ask yourself, what if it's not as bad as it seems? Because most of the time, it isn't. Most of the time, it's our own mind we need to master. Your power isn't in changing what happens. It's in changing how you frame what happens. So the next time life throws you off balance, remember Marcus Aurelius. It's not the event. It's your interpretation of it. And interpretations can be changed. Train your mind to see the whole picture. Don't let it trick you into despair. You're stronger than your worst thought. You're wiser than your first reaction. And you're braver than the voice that says, this is the end. It's not. It might just be the beginning. 10. Radical responsibility. When everything falls apart, what's your first instinct? To blame the world? To collapse into despair? Or to quietly ask yourself, what now? Eric had never expected his life to burn down. Literally. A sudden electrical fire consumed the small home he'd spent years building with his own hands. In a matter of hours, everything was gone. Clothes, photos, tools, even his dog's favorite chair. No one was hurt, but the damage was total. And the worst part? The insurance company denied the claim. A small paperwork error, a missed signature. They called it unfortunate. Eric called it a nightmare. For weeks, he could have blamed everyone, the system, the power company, fate, even himself. And honestly, no one would have blamed him. But instead of falling apart, Eric made a different choice. He took radical responsibility. Not because it was fair, not because it felt good, but because deep down, he understood something most people never do. When you stop blaming, you start building. Radical responsibility doesn't mean everything is your fault. It means everything is your opportunity. Eric chose to take ownership of his mindset, his actions, and his next steps. He stayed with a friend for a while, took on extra hours at his job, and eventually began rebuilding from the ground up. Not just a home, but a life based on intention, clarity, and strength. And here's what's incredible. 2 years later, Eric owns a better house, runs a small woodworking business from his garage, and mentors young people in his community who are facing hardship. He didn't just survive the fire, he transformed through it. Epictetus said, "It is not things that disturb us, but our opinion of them." That one idea can change your entire life. You see, most of us live in reaction. We think freedom comes from control, controlling outcomes, people, circumstances. But the Stoics taught us the opposite. True freedom comes from within, from mastering our responses, not the world. Radical responsibility is the gateway to that mastery. It means asking, what can I learn from this? How can I grow from this? What's the next right move I can take, no matter how small? Think about your own life. Maybe something fell apart recently. A relationship, a plan. Maybe someone wronged you. Maybe life just hit you harder than you expected. The pain is real, no doubt about it. But the question remains, what are you going to do with it? Blame gives temporary relief but permanent weakness. Responsibility gives temporary discomfort but lasting strength. I once heard a coach say, you can't always choose what happens, but you always choose the meaning you give it. That's stoicism in action. And it's not just about heroic stories like Eric's. Radical responsibility applies to everyday life. You get stuck in traffic, you can rage or use the time to reflect. Your partner snaps at you, you can escalate or ask what's really going on. Your plans fall through, you can sulk or pivot with curiosity. Small choices, repeated daily, build resilience. Radical responsibility doesn't make you a victim of guilt. It makes you the author of your experience. It's saying, this moment is mine, and so is what I do with it. It's not passive, it's powerful, because it gives you back the one thing no one can take, your agency. There's a quiet kind of strength in people who live this way. You've probably seen them. They don't complain much. They don't blame the world. They just move. Not from ego, but from clarity. Not because they don't feel pain, but because they know pain doesn't have to paralyze you. They understand what the Stoics live by. Fate leads the willing and drags the unwilling. So let me ask you, where in your life are you waiting for someone else to fix it? Where are you blaming instead of choosing? Where could you trade the story of why me for watch me? Because the truth is, no one's coming to save you. And that's not bleak, it's empowering. Once you stop waiting, you start living. And that's when freedom begins. Not the kind that depends on circumstances, but the kind that no fire can destroy. The kind that lives in how you think, how you respond, how you show up. That's radical responsibility, and it's how people like Eric rise from the ashes. 11. Use pain to honor the one you lost. When someone you love dies, the world doesn't just lose a person, it loses a part of you. Sarah was 32 when her mother passed away after a long battle with a rare illness. They had always been close. Her mother was her anchor, the one who taught her how to ride a bike, how to forgive, how to keep going even when life made no sense. But when the diagnosis came and the treatments failed, Sarah was forced to say goodbye in a way no one is ever truly ready for. In the months that followed, she wasn't herself. Grief hit like a storm. Her once energetic mornings turned into numb afternoons. The silence in the house became unbearable. Friends tried to help, offering gentle words and casseroles, but nothing touched the weight she carried. Then one evening, sitting in her mother's favorite chair, Sarah found an old journal. In it, her mom had written something that stopped her cold. Even if I don't make it, I want you to live so fully that my death becomes your reason, not your ruin. That one line became a seed. Grief didn't vanish overnight, but something inside Sarah shifted. Instead of asking, why did this happen to me? She began asking, what can I do with this pain? That shift changed everything. Sarah poured her grief into action. She began researching the illness that took her mother. She spoke with doctors, survivors, researchers. What started as an act of curiosity became a mission. A year later, she launched a foundation in her mother's name to fund research for that rare disease. Today, her work has helped hundreds of families find hope, find treatment, and in some cases, find more time. Sarah didn't get rid of the pain, she transformed it. The Stoics had a name for this. It wasn't about denying pain or pretending it doesn't matter. It was about transmuting it, using pain as a kind of spiritual fuel. There's a quote, often misattributed but deeply Stoic in spirit. Pain is inevitable, but suffering is a choice. Grief is real, but what we do with it, that's where our power lies. When someone dies, a part of us wants to go with them. But if we stay here, if we are still breathing, then we've been given a choice. We can collapse or we can carry. We can carry their memory. We can carry their values. We can carry their love into places they never got to reach. This isn't about martyrdom. It's about meaning. It's about honoring them through how we live now. Have you ever wondered what your loved one would want for you? Not just the cliches, they'd want you to be happy, but something deeper. They would want your life to echo theirs, not in shadow, but in purpose. They'd want you to keep going, to love boldly, to speak kindly, to risk again, to create, to build, to give, and maybe, just maybe, to take the pain of losing them and turn it into a torch that lights someone else's path. Pain can feel like the end of your story, but often it's the start of your calling. There are countless stories like Sarah's, people who took unbearable loss and made something extraordinary from it. A father who lost his daughter in a car accident and now runs road safety campaigns. A woman who lost her brother to addiction and now counsels at-risk youth. A veteran who lost friends in war and now helps others with PTSD find peace. Pain is universal, but what we do with pain, that's where legacy lives. So if you're grieving right now, this message is not to rush your healing. It's not to tell you to get over it. It's a reminder that you can create something with this, that maybe, just maybe, the most powerful tribute to those we've lost is to live in a way that keeps their love moving forward. You don't need a foundation or a public cause. Sometimes honoring someone is as simple as changing how you show up each day. Maybe you listen more deeply because they always did. Maybe you forgive more freely because they never got the chance. Maybe you find courage to speak, to build, to try again because they can't, but you still can. You're still here, and that means there's still work to do. Let your grief guide you, not into darkness, but towards something sacred. Let it shape your next chapter into something they would be proud of. Because in the end, grief is love with nowhere to go, unless you give it a place to live, and that place can be your life. 12. Transform suffering into inner power. Pain has a way of changing people, sometimes for the worse, but sometimes for the better if we let it. Tom was a Marine, strong, disciplined, brave. He'd been through combat, witnessed things most of us never will. But when he came home, he brought more than medals. He brought the war with him, inside his mind. The nightmares didn't stop. Loud noises would make him flinch. Crowds overwhelmed him. Relationships fell apart. At one point, even getting out of bed felt like a battle he couldn't win. PTSD, they called it. But to Tom, it felt like a thief, stealing his peace, his identity, and his future. He tried everything, meds, therapy, distractions. Nothing truly worked until he sat alone one day, desperate for something to make the noise stop. That's when he stumbled across a quote by Epictetus. "No man is free who is not master of himself." That line hit harder than any explosion he had ever heard. Because for the first time, he realized the real enemy wasn't behind him. It was inside him. And it wasn't pain he had to fight. It was his relationship with pain. That moment became the turning point. Tom didn't try to get rid of the pain anymore. He leaned into it. Through long sessions of meditation, through journaling, breath work, and eventually through Stoic philosophy, he began to see suffering as a teacher, not a curse. He learned what the Stoics taught, that pain is not the problem. Our reaction to pain is the problem. And in learning to sit with the pain, not fight it, not numb it, Tom found something deeper than comfort. He found clarity. He found strength. And perhaps most surprising of all, he found compassion. Because when you've suffered deeply, you start to understand the pain in others. And once you understand it, you can help them carry it. Today, Tom mentors young veterans. He listens. He doesn't offer cliches. He offers presence, stillness, hard-earned wisdom. And he tells them the truth no one wants to hear, but everyone needs to hear. You might not be able to erase what happened, but you can choose who you become because of it. That's the essence of this lesson. Suffering will visit all of us. It may come from trauma, loss, betrayal, illness, or quiet loneliness. But how we process that suffering, how we transform it, that determines the course of our lives. The modern world often tells us to escape pain, swipe past it, medicate it, distract ourselves from it. But the Stoics had a different message, one that's more relevant than ever. Lean in, listen, and let pain shape you into something deeper. Pain strips away illusions. It reminds us of what truly matters. It wakes us up to our inner life, to the areas we've neglected, avoided, or misunderstood. But that awareness, that awakening, can only happen if we stay with the discomfort long enough to learn from it. The question is, will you use your suffering to shrink or to grow? Tom's story isn't about being a hero in the battlefield. It's about becoming a hero in the battlefield of the soul, and you don't need to be a soldier to relate. Maybe you've been through heartbreak so deep it shattered your sense of self. Maybe you've lost someone, and the silence they left behind haunts you. Maybe you carry anxiety, regret, or shame that no one else sees. Whatever your pain is, it doesn't have to define you, but it can refine you. There's an old Stoic exercise where you imagine the worst thing that could happen, and then ask, if this were to happen, how would I remain noble? How would I remain just? It's not to dwell in fear, it's to prepare the mind, to turn suffering into strength before it arrives. But even if you didn't prepare, it's not too late. You can begin today, right now. Sit with your pain, observe it without judgment, ask it what it wants to teach you. Maybe it's trying to remind you of your resilience. Maybe it's trying to humble you, to deepen your empathy. Maybe it's simply trying to show you that even in darkness, there is still light, if you choose to light the fire within. Pain, when met with presence, becomes power, not the loud, aggressive kind, but the quiet kind, the kind that lets you walk into a room and radiate steadiness, the kind that doesn't need to prove anything because it has survived everything. So the next time you feel like your suffering is too much, remember Tom, remember the fire you still carry, and remember this, you don't have to be unscarred to be whole. You just have to let your scars become stories of strength. Life was never meant to be easy, and the Stoics never expected it to be. They didn't wake up hoping the day would go smoothly or that people would treat them perfectly. They didn't rely on fate to make things convenient. Instead, they trained for difficulty. They practiced for adversity. They built themselves from the inside out so that whatever came their way, pain, loss, chaos, betrayal, they wouldn't crumble. They didn't ask for life to be lighter. They trained to become stronger. That's the difference between living like a victim of circumstances and living like a Stoic. You don't get to choose what happens to you. You don't get to control every person, every outcome, every twist in the story. But you always get to choose your response. That is your sacred power. Marcus Aurelius said, "What happens around you is inevitable, but what you choose to do with it is entirely in your hands." That's not just a beautiful quote. It's a roadmap to inner freedom. Let that truth settle in for a moment, because once you accept it, not just intellectually, but in your bones, you stop giving your peace away so easily. You stop blaming the world for how you feel. You stop waiting for someone else to change before you take control of your life. you start asking better questions. Instead of, why is this happening to me? You ask, what is this trying to teach me? Instead of, when will this end? You ask, how can I endure this with grace? And when life knocks you down, as it inevitably will, you no longer see it as punishment. You see it as a forge. Every hardship, every disappointment, every failure, it's a hammer shaping you into something unbreakable. A sword is not made by soft whispers. It's made by fire, pressure, and relentless strikes. And you, yes, you are that sword. So the next time you feel overwhelmed by the chaos around you, come back to this. You are not a victim. You are a student. You are not fragile. You are being forged. You are not powerless. You are in training. And if you've made it this far, if you're still here listening, absorbing this, then you already carry that flame. That deep knowing that even when life is painful, it can still be purposeful. The Stoics weren't superhuman. They felt grief, heartbreak, rage, and fear just like we do. But they chose to meet those feelings with discipline and wisdom instead of reaction and resentment. And so can you. You can pause before you speak. You can reflect before you blame. You can rebuild after you fall. And you can turn pain into clarity, silence into strength, and loss into legacy. That is the way of the Stoic. That is the path of someone who doesn't just survive life, but transforms through it. And if this message resonates with you, if even a single line here has made you stop and breathe a little deeper, then let that be a sign you're not alone on this path. There are thousands of us walking it together. Quietly, calmly, steadily, choosing to respond instead of react. And I want to hear from you. If you're still with me, take a moment to write in the comments, each obstacle makes me stronger. Not for me, for yourself. To mark this moment, to declare your commitment to becoming unshakable, no matter what life throws your way. And if you found this helpful, if it grounded you, challenged you, or reminded you of who you really are, please consider liking this video, sharing it with someone who might need it today, and subscribing to the channel. We post reflections like this daily to help you build a quieter, wiser, more powerful life. Let's keep walking this path, one thought, one challenge, one choice at a time, because true strength isn't loud. It's silent, steady, and earned.